it brings up all these really kind of strange ideas about existence, like, could we actually be living in, like, the head of the windfish, or...
or the Matrix.
Or the Matrix? Yeah, I mean, this totally predates the Matrix by several years.
Yeah.
It brings up almost all of the same questions. For the most part, I'd say that they're purely designed for entertainment and making money. I mean, there are very few games that are actually made for artistic purposes, strictly, and the only one that I can really think of off the top of my head is Ico, which was made when PlayStation 2 first came out, and they really put a lot of effort into making this really intricate puzzle gameplay and really beautiful shots. Like, every single one of the shots in that game is programmed, so you don't have movement of the camera. It just, every shot, the camera moves with you to reveal, like, part of the world in this, and I mean, it's beautifully composed, and the world is really, it's really well created. Like, they made sure that every single wall was, like, an actual wall, and not like and there weren't any invisible walls, and that every single place in this entire game you can get to and do something with, and it's really, that's pretty much the only thing I can think of that was really made for, like, we're going to go out and make like a beautiful game that's beautifully constructed and challenging, and not just flashy and entertaining. Zelda took up, like, a huge amount of my childhood, pretty much, just because, I mean, when you're a little kid, those games are really hard. Yeah, like, now I can go through a dungeon in, like, an hour at most, pretty much, and like that, I would just, like, sit down and be like, okay, I'm gonna get through to the mini-boss today, and I'd be, like, lost in this dungeon for, like, 3 days, couldn't figure out at all.
Yeah.
Although there's a lot of things in Link's Awakening that I still can't really do all that well, because that game was actually kind of hard. My mom really didn't like the fact that I played Game Boy. She's like, don't ever give the Game Boy to the girls. They'll just be like, play it all the time. Try everything you can. If something doesn't work, just try to do, like, the weirdest thing you can think of. There's a lot of things that was like, in Zelda, I'd get really uber frustrated with what was happening, and be like, I can't do this at all. And then I'd go off and do something random, and it would end up being part of what I had to do to get to somewhere. So it's just like, don't ever get stuck on something. Just, if you're really frustrated, just don't focus on it so much. Just kind of go around and try whatever you can, but don't, like, freak out about it. Oh man, we used to have crazy arguments how to do things in Ico, because what we did with Ico was, we got that game from my dad's stepbrother, so we would all get in, like, we'd all sit in the living room and, like, try to play it together, like, figure out what we had to do, because the game's pretty intense with puzzles and things, and so a lot of it you couldn't really figure out on your own, or if you did it on your own, it would take you a whole lot longer, so we got this whole, like, we'd all get together and be, like, arguing over what to do for this, and, I don't know. We used to get really mad at Gran Turismo, too, and would try to figure out ways how to, like, go against what the game did, like, crash the cars into each other and stuff, like, head on, but, I mean, nothing really, like, crazy philosophical, or, I really didn't like Gran Turismo, so, because it was just so restrictive, so we tried to launch cars off of bridges, and the whole thing with crashing them head on was really hilarious, because they didn't write into the game, like, any sort of crashing thing at all. So when we hit them head on, they'd go, and they'd shoot away from each other, like opposite, like, magnets with, like, the same pole. They'd just be like, woo, and they'd, like, fly apart crazy, like, completely against the laws of physics and pretty much everything.
Yeah.
I'd say it's not doing a whole lot to help society. I'm not entirely sure how it's hurting it. I mean, you could do, like, the whole cliche argument, like, oh, kids are just sitting at home, not going out playing with other kids, they're just sitting at computers and playing, which it's true for a lot of people, but I mean, what my family did was we made this sort of, like, a social event. Like, we'd have my dad's brother over, and then it'd be all of us, and we'd just, like, scream at the television and, like, do all sorts of other stuff, and try to ruin the games, and or try to get through Ico, and so, I mean, that was positive. I never really sat there by myself and just played things. I mean, even when I played Game Boy, which is kind of hard to do collaboratively, because it's just like this little tiny thing.
Yeah.
It was, I'd go off and ask my sister how to do things if I couldn't get through something. But I mean, it does isolate people to a certain extent.
Yeah.
One of my friends plays World of Warcraft, and she says that she goes on there a lot more just to talk to people that she knows is on there all the time. And I don't know, I've got kind of mixed feelings about World of Warcraft because my dad's brother he got completely addicted to that thing, and he'd just sit there at his computer all day with a blanket wrapped around his head, and we'd walk in and be like, "Hey EJ, how you doing?" And he'd be like, "I'm tired," and then fighting orcs. And we'd be like, okay, you have a good time with that, we're gonna leave. I mean, I've watched him play it, and I don't honestly, I don't understand why people get so addicted to it, because it's so boring. It's like
it's pretty repetitive.
You run around and you do the same thing over and over and over again. It's like you run around with people, you run into monsters, you fight them, you run around a little bit more, you go and buy things, you fight more monsters. People like have the ability in those games just to like improve themselves as much as they feel like they can, and like they don't like apply that to like their real lives. I think that's good, but I mean, I think a lot of people just don't like apply that to the rest of their lives. So they're just like, oh, I'm like level 89 mage, and in their real life they just don't have that same sort of drive to do that, and I don't know why, or if they got some other things going on with that. That's getting a little bit too philosophical. A lot of things, I don't think they really have morals. Like, if they have more of a narrative to them, then they might. And a lot of them, if they do have morals, it's more like kind of superficial things like friendship is good. And I totally think that machines are going to take over.
Yeah.
That's just the feeling I get. General sense of doom about machines. That's why I don't like them. After, like, a lot of the backlash that people, like, had against a lot of these things, like Grand Theft Auto and stuff like that, they've started doing stuff like Nintendo DS, they've got like the whole like mind game things where it's like, it's keep your like mental capacity sharp or something like that, so they give you little puzzles and things. But the weird thing that I think that I've found with Nintendo DS is that I know a lot more like adults and like, or I guess younger, I don't know, younger adults have DSs, and I don't know a whole lot of kids who do. So, and I've been to places where I just, like, see, like, people are, like, in their 20s just sitting there, like, scribbling on DSs. And I think that's kind of interesting, because it's, like, they've taken stuff that's always just, like, looked down upon as, like, child's play, and just kind of, like, made it okay for older people to fiddle around with these things all the time. And I don't know if that's necessarily good, and, like, maybe that's, like, good marketing or something. Like, it's like, oh, we have to expand our customer base, so let's make it okay for older people to fiddle around with our gadgets. Yeah, but I mean, like, so I don't know if that's necessarily like social sort of. I mean, they're a corporation; they're motivated by profits. So I guess that's more.
Yeah, that's the bad stuff.
I can't really say if I was actually addicted to anything. I know when I was a kid and I played games, I would think about them a lot, but like not necessarily be like, oh my god, I have to go and play this right now. Like, I used to have this really badly made Star Wars game, and I would just be so angry at this thing, like, all the time that I'd think about it a lot, and be like, okay, so how do I get through that cave? And I would think about it, and then not be able to get anywhere. So, and I used to have, like, dreams about that game, because I would think about it so much, but, I don't know. I still have Zelda dreams. I have dreams where I'm like actually in the Zelda game, and then it looks like I'm like a little icon thing, and then I'm running through like little grid forests, and I'd have like, oh man, I'd have like lots of dreams like that, and I still do. So that's the effect that game has had on my life. It's like part of my psyche.
Going off that, do you think they improve your thinking, or do they control your thinking?
I don't think. I guess a little bit of both. I'd spend like a lot of time just kind of mulling over what happened in the game. Like, the end of Link's Awakening made me cry, like, so much, because the island disappears. And you're like, no, everyone's gone. Like all the crazy little characters that lived on the island, and I guess I don't know. I guess it taught me emotional depth. Very few things make like things like videos or movies make me cry, and the fact that that game made me cry that's pretty intense right there.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.